Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today, Karen threatens to burn down my house. After that, am I the jerk for embarrassing my neighbor? And after that, the wage theft tango. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to burn down anyone's house. What about the roof? The roof, I heard it's on fire. So please smash that like button. And subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen threatens to burn my house down. Long story short, I was best friends with Sarah from age 13 to 18. We're now in our mid-30s. We stayed in touch after high school, talked occasionally, and even hung out a few times. To my knowledge, there was never any animosity. Anyway, my dad and Sarah's mom worked together and are acquaintances, and when my dad bumped into Sarah's mom at the grocery store a few weeks ago, she mentioned she was selling her home soon. The house that Sarah had grown up in. It is the size we need and the district we need. My dad told Sarah's mom we may be interested in taking a look at it before it went on the market, so we arranged a date and a time. I excitedly texted Sarah to tell her that we were seeing her mom tomorrow to look at the house and received replies such as, "You're not gonna get the house so you and your dad can buzz off. That's so inappropriate, so drop it, it'll never happen. I'll burn it down before that happens. That's so inappropriate to try and buy my childhood home without even talking to me." So I ask, am I the jerk for not consulting my childhood friend about potentially buying her former home? Note, neither her nor her brother are interested in buying it as they have their own homes. Update, her mom called off our meeting to see the house. I'm assuming due to Sarah completely losing her crap, as she stated in other texts she was gonna go flip out on her mom. Sarah has struggled with mental health in the past and has actually spent some time in a mental health institution. Due to the unhinged texts and open threats, it's probably for the best her mom called off the meeting and that we don't go through with purchasing, as we have 3 kids and we don't want to be constantly looking over our shoulder. I'm sure something else will come along, so I'm not upset about the house at this point, but I will say the friendship is definitely over. Not the jerk. She needs to get over herself. Her parents own the house and they decide if you can buy it or not. Show them the text their daughter sent you. Not the jerk. And I feel like Sarah is upset the house is being sold because she wanted to inherit it. Not the jerk, and Sarah seems extremely unhinged over this. She gets no say in who her mother chooses to sell her home to. Are you paying a fair market price? If so, I would tell Sarah's mom that Sarah seemed upset about you buying the house. This may be an issue between the two of them more than you. Am I the jerk for embarrassing my neighbor? I'm 29, female. My husband, who's 31, and I moved into a nice flat near the city center. We're in England. It's a rather nice area. Our next door neighbor has her balcony next to ours. My husband is half Spanish, half Polish. I'm Polish. We speak both languages and often speak in a weird combination of both, sometimes adding English into the mix. Anyway, both languages are spoken rather fast, or they seem so, and can sound a bit aggressive if you're not used to them. I've had people assume I was angry because of how the language sounded to them when I was having a completely pleasant conversation. My neighbor was no exception. She's heard us talking and must have assumed that we were arguing. We weren't. She approached me and asked me, concerned, if I was okay. I was confused and she explained that she'd heard our arguments. I explained that I was fine and we hadn't been arguing at all. I suggested that it might be because of how harsh both languages can sound. She didn't believe me and told me she was there if I needed help. I told my husband, and we laughed and decided to speak a bit more quietly just in case. One day we were chatting and joking around when 2 police officers knocked on our door. Someone called with concerns about my well-being. What? We explained our situation, they took me aside, and I had to explain everything. It was humiliating, even more so for my poor husband. The next day, my neighbor approached me again, and I repeated that we weren't arguing and she had to let it go. She told me that she wouldn't have to worry if we just switched to English. I told her we wouldn't be doing that, and she'd have to take my word for it and to stop bothering us. Last night, she posted a recording to our neighborhood's group. It was of me having a good time with my husband, joking around. She said she believed I was in danger and asked what to do and who to report it to because I was in denial. People were agreeing with her, calling me names, and told her to keep recording because I was covering for him and complaining how difficult it was to help foreigners when they don't speak English. They called me all sorts of names for covering for my husband, and I was just confused. It wasn't until someone who spoke Spanish chimed in and said that we weren't arguing. Someone else who spoke Polish said the same thing and told her to mind her own business instead of recording people. She removed the recording. Today, she knocked on my door, shouting at me, telling me I humiliated her and I must have done it on purpose to toy with her when she was just concerned. I told her I explained it to her many times, but she wouldn't listen. She just kept shouting and calling me names, and I just shut the door in her face. My neighbor is still furious with me, and I'm confused, and I do feel bad because I understand where she was coming from, and she did have good intentions. Should I have switched to English to avoid this whole situation? It would have been an easy fix. Am I the jerk for confusing her? Edit. I just wanted to clarify. We really weren't loud. Our walls are thin. I can easily hear her talking in her flat, and she talks normally if she's in the adjacent room. She recorded it from the balcony. We had our balcony door open and we're chatting inside. She video recorded from her balcony when she was outside. Our balconies are very close. Not the jerk. Honestly, I'd report her for harassment. And recording you without your knowledge and posting the private conversation to social media? That's a serious invasion of your privacy. You shouldn't have to switch to her language just because she can't stay out of other people's business. Am I the jerk for refusing to answer my girlfriend's question? I, 26 male, have known my best friend, 26 male, since we were 14. We live in 2 different states now, so I don't get to see him nearly as often as I would like to, but we do keep in touch through near daily FaceTimes and pretty constant texts. Because of the distance, my fiancée, 27 female, hasn't gotten many chances to meet him in person. We did FaceTime introductions, and they've said brief hellos at a couple weddings we all attended, but they haven't been around each other in many non-formal circumstances. Anytime I see him otherwise, I usually go down to his place for the weekend by myself. He had a pretty rough time in his late teens and early 20s. He was struggling with addiction issues, among other things, to cope with bad life circumstances. He distanced himself from everyone, excluding myself and a handful of others. My family really rallied around him during this time to support him, even from afar, so I'd say all of us are pretty protective of him. They just have to be quiet about it since he isn't interested in anyone other than that aforementioned handful of people seeing him vulnerable. Luckily, he's doing much better now. Last night, my parents hosted a little get-together for my mom's birthday and he was invited. They live at a decent halfway point between us both, so it works perfectly. It was the first time my fiancé and him were around each other for more than a few hours in a more casual setting. It became obvious quickly that they don't get along. It also became obvious that because their previous interactions had all included long sleeves, my fiancé had never seen my friend's bare arms, which have scars on them. I caught her looking a few times over the course of the night, but I didn't say anything. I'm pretty protective over him, but I knew he could handle it himself if he was too bothered. Towards the end of the night, he did end up making a "my eyes are up here" sort of joking comment. Even my parents pulled me aside at one point to mention it, and it soured their view of her a little. When we got in my car on the way back, she almost immediately asked me what had happened. After being frustrated over her behavior at the party, I told her not to play stupid. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what's up. She told me I was being a jerk and that she just wanted more information, and I said it was incredibly rude to ask things like that, even indirectly. It was a brutal drive home, and I'm rethinking a few things now. Am I the jerk? Edit. For those asking why I don't warn in advance, I've introduced him to people in the past and have never had a reaction like this. He's a human being. I don't exactly think he needs a warning label. You're the jerk. It might have been rude for her to openly ask him, but she didn't. She asked you in private. And if the scars are from this, that she may not have any frame of reference for what those scars look like. I mean, I don't have anybody in my life that struggled with this, so she may just have not realized. You're the jerk. She had no idea what she was walking into. You should have told her beforehand. At the point that you've asked someone to marry you, you should be able to trust them with the story of your best friend, at least enough of it so she isn't blindsided in a social situation. You're the jerk. While I hate to say it, you should have been more sensitive here. Your fiancé may not have been playing stupid and could have been genuinely unsure. Not everyone has seen this sort of thing before, and it may have been confusing for her. I understand that you're protective of your friend and really sensitive to anything that may appear as an attack on him, but you have to give your fiancé the benefit of the doubt here. You probably should have said that her actions may have been interpreted as disrespectful. Unless you truly believe she was being rude on purpose, your actions were a little more brash than they should have been. Am I the jerk for disrespecting a family recipe? Background. I, 24 female, moved out of home for school at 18 and have been living abroad on my own ever since, cooking my own food. I don't believe I'm a picky eater, but I do avoid certain foods, most meat, mayo, vinegar. If I'm invited somewhere and I don't like the food or some of the ingredients, I'll smile and eat anyways, but I avoid these foods if I can choose. My mother knows about it, so when she cooks, she usually will set aside a small portion for me before adding mayo or vinegar. One of the side dishes of yesterday's meal was a potato salad typical of my region. Basically, potato puree with small pieces of veggies and seafood mixed in with mayo. Mayo is a key element of this recipe, which is why I never order that dish, but my mother usually sets aside a portion before adding the mayo. Usually she will set aside a big portion so that other people feel welcome to eat the alternative, no mayo version if they want. Dinners here are always potluck style, but this time she forgot and I arrived at the kitchen on time to set aside a small part that had no mayo yet, not more than 3 or 4 spoons. So when we served dinner, I just took the plate for myself. We have eaten with everyone invited yesterday countless times, and I can't remember any times where any of them ate the no mayo version. I ate the same main as everyone else. One of the family friends noticed my plate was different. She asked me if I didn't think the potato salad was great. I agreed. Then why did my plate look different, and why hadn't I been served from the same dish as the others? I told her mine had no mayo. Did I have any intolerance? No ma'am, I just don't like mayo. But potato salad without mayo is just potato puree. Maybe ma'am, but I enjoy potato puree. At this time, she started insisting I try the real recipe and see how good it is. I told her I grew up with it. I knew it was good, and I was happy everyone enjoyed it. I just preferred my version. I admit I was a bit short. I didn't see my meal choice warranted so much attention. My family hates conflict and was trying to steer the conversation somewhere else, but this person went on a rant about how young people are entitled and unappreciative of their traditions. I looked her dead in the eye and said I did not think I was the entitled one here since I had not gone to her own home to tell her how to eat her own food. Complete silence. She was visibly annoyed, but let my mother change the topic. I believe I was in my right to tell her that she was out of line, but my poor grandpa looked dismayed at the tension, and it probably would have been easier if I had taken a small portion with mayo and politely agreed. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It's one thing to ask a question about why you had a different side dish out of curiosity, but she doubled down and was trying to go off on you for it. In your own house. That will always make her the jerk. Am I the jerk for breaking a promise and attending my stepdaughter's graduation? I'll start by explaining some backstory. I, 54 male, lost my first wife when my son, 25 male, and daughter, 22 female, were ages 9 and 12. Both my kids took it as hard as you would expect, and to this day have a poor relationship with both my current wife, Doreen, who's 49, and my stepdaughter, Amy, who's 18. I started dating Doreen about 4 months after my wife passed. As such, my kids believe I cheated on their mom. Amy was 5 when we got together, and as such, I see her as my own daughter. On to the actual story. 4 years ago, 2 days before Kay's high school graduation, Amy got very ill while visiting her grandparents and ended up needing emergency surgery. My wife and I rushed to be with Amy, and admittedly, I did not communicate well with Kay. At the time, Kay didn't pick up my calls, so I left her a voicemail and several text messages explaining what happened and telling Kay I was sorry, but I would make it up to her. A few hours go by and I get a call from Kay. She's in hysterics, telling me what a terrible father I am, and stated that if I did not attend her graduation, I would be done to her. I chose to support Amy. True to her words, Kay did not contact me on the day of her graduation, and when I came home, Kay's things had been moved out of the house with a note explaining how we were no longer family and to never contact her again. Luckily, Kay and I were able to reconcile. However, I promised her that I would give her absolutely anything in the world to make her forgive me. She said that she would forgive me as long as I refused to attend Amy's graduation, as this was the only way to make it fair. I agreed at the time, thinking she was just joking or angry and would soon forget about it. This leads me to now. Invitations for Amy's graduation went out, and despite all the hostility, Amy wanted to make sure Kay got one. Kay called Amy later that day and said she would be unable to attend as she and I would be spending the day together per our agreement. Amy broke down into tears asking me why I was missing her graduation. I assured her I was not and that I would speak to Kay. Later, I explained to Kay that I simply could not miss Amy's graduation. Kay launched into a tirade about how I was a liar and a jerk, and how could I do this to her again. I told her that we would talk about it when she calmed down, and she said we would never talk again. My son and our extended family have all taken Kay's side, saying I didn't see how hurt she was at graduation. My wife believes I'm the jerk for even promising that in the first place, as I should have known it would only upset one or both of the girls. And Amy is just sad and confused, wondering why Kay can't stand her. I know keeping my promise and not attending Amy's graduation is probably the only way to salvage my relationship with Kay, but no matter how I look at it, I would feel like I'm punishing Amy for having a medical issue. So, am I the jerk? You're the jerk, and you have been for years. You are a bad father. Kay is correct. You're a liar. You've done nothing to prioritize Kay ever since your new family rolled in. Your relationship with your daughter is done for, and the blood is on your hands. You're the jerk. You replaced your kid's mom with a new family 4 months after she passed. Your kids lost their mom so young, and you don't seem like you prioritized their feelings or helped them deal with things. Instead, you moved on fast. Kay didn't have a mother to attend her graduation, and she needed you there. Could you not have driven to the graduation, then back to the hospital? Yeah, you're the jerk and you know it. You're clutching at straws here in the hopes that someone will validate your poor parenting choices. She moved out all those years ago. You're already on your second chance. You provide Amy with 2 parents all the time, and you choose to leave Kay with no parents. Every time you choose Amy over Kay, you orphan her. The only way you get to keep 3 kids is to skip Amy's graduation as you promised, and you should have told Amy about this long ago. However, you being the poor excuse for a parent that you seem to be, you thought that you'd just blank this promise to the kid whose graduation you skipped. If you break it, you lose Kay, and you'll likely lose your son too. You're the jerk. Edit. And let's not even bother going down the new woman while your kids are still grieving the loss of their mother route. 4 months? Bruh, y'all be wildin' out today. What is wrong with y'all? Am I the jerk for refusing to help my sister with her rent, which will cause her to be evicted, and my niece to transfer to a bad school district? My sister Jessica is irresponsible with money. She tries to live beyond her means and expects someone else to bail her out. This behavior has not changed since having my niece, Valentina, Tina, and Jessica has in fact been even less responsible with her spending. Jessica has been behind on her rent for months. She's treated it like a joke, constantly going to the mall and even taking Tina on an expensive spring break vacation. Jessica's landlord told her that she had one last chance to pay back her rent within the next 2 weeks, or else he would be forced to evict her. Some background on my family is that they all live in a very large house. 2 stories, 7 bedrooms, and a large yard. Family members built it generations ago, so my family pays practically nothing in taxes. But they are not at all well off. Their collective income is so low that they qualify and rely on services such as the food bank. For this reason, they're unable to help Jessica pay back her rent. My family is hoping that I will help, because if Jessica and Tina move into my family's house, Tina would be forced to transfer to a bad school district. Tina's current school will allow her to finish the year, but after, she's expected to transfer and begin 6th grade at a different school district. Jessica is begging me to help with her rent because she doesn't want Tina to have to leave all her friends behind. She's also very worried because the school district within our family's address is known for being a bad one. This district has had many issues since we attended as students. The amount Jessica needs would be a lot for me. It would still be possible for me to give it, but I refused. I told Jessica that this is on her. She chose to live beyond her means and treat her rent issues like a joke. I'm not responsible for her choices. She chose to have a kid. My love for Tina does not make her my responsibility. It will be hard for Tina, but 6th grade is still easier to adapt to a new school, and friend groups constantly change during that age anyway. I also reminded Jessica that despite the issues at this school district, we didn't get involved in any of those bad activities because we were taught not to give in to peer pressure. Tina is a smart girl, and I'm sure she'll be fine. My family has told me that they are disappointed in Jessica, but are disappointed in me as well. And they said that Jessica is irresponsible, but that they hoped I would put my niece's well-being first. I still feel that this situation is entirely of Jessica's making, and she has sole responsibility for it. Besides, It's not as if Jessica or Tina will be homeless. They'll be able to stay at the family house. Tina will still have access to an education, even if it's not as good as the one offered by her previous school district. Am I the jerk for refusing to help with Jessica's rent? Not the jerk. Your sister had money, she just spent it. And the bad outcome here is not so bad. She'll still have housing and a functional, if not preferred, school. It's a hard lesson, but she needs to learn it. Not the jerk. If you help Jessica right now, she'll be back in the same spot in 6 months. Instead, you're helping her by forcing her to live with non-catastrophic consequences of her actions, and hopefully she changes her behavior. Neighbors demand my parking space so their kids can play in it. I, 27 female, am currently single. I purchased a nice big apartment in a quiet neighborhood a few years ago, and along with it, I also got 3 parking spaces, each for about $25,000. This is a lot of money, but at the time, I figured parking was crap, and it was about to get worse in terms of availability. That turned out to be true. I have 2 cars, and my ex used to have 1, so we used all 3 spaces. Recently, we broke up, and I started traveling a lot. I let my baby cousin use one of the cars, so I had 2 free parking spots. I offered them to my only neighbor, which I like. She's engaged but has no kids. I rented them both to her for $100, even though realistically rent should be $700 to $800. I checked prices and they're going crazy. One space rents for $300 to $400. The rest of our neighbors were not a favorite choice of mine because honestly, they suck. One of my parking spaces is kind of small, and I have a big BMW which I parked in that spot one night. The next day, they had parked in such a way that I was unable to move without crashing into someone. When I asked them to move their cars and promised to just switch around parking spots so issues don't repeat, I got the answer. "You are smart enough to leave your car there. You should be smart enough to get it out. Don't you have a million cars? Go drive somewhere else." I got them towed and they screamed at me, so that was fun. Suffice to say, we are not friends with the 4 families involved in this fiasco, which is why my lovely neighbor, Sky, that even defended me, got my parking spots. People noticed Sky's cars, and only a few days later, they made a building association meeting, something I haven't been invited to in a year, and sat me down and let me know that the parking situation is unfair. They said I have to put the parking spots up for the whole building and have a rent auction for who will pay the most. They said they feel I was being unfair as they had kids and Sky doesn't. I felt bad and talked it over with Sky. She agreed her and her fiancé can manage with one of the bigger spaces, which barely fits 2 cars, the second blocking the first. Well, they weren't happy. Apparently, they all wanted this big parking space because it is in the shade and they can put slides and other contraptions for their kids to play in. I let them know this makes me uncomfortable as I will be back at some point and I do not want anyone to invest in anything. They called me selfish and a jerk. I got upset and told one of the moms who was on my case that kids are a choice and that does not make her special. She kept saying, "No wonder you are single. No wonder you don't have kids." She called me a rich, spoiled brat. No one except Sky speaks with me anymore. Should I just give them the parking spot they want? Am I the jerk? No way. You shouldn't even give them a chance to rent any of your spaces. They can't choose who you rent to. You own it, you get to decide. For all they know, you're not renting it. You just told your neighbor they could park there. Forget them. If they come at you with some BS, tell them to call your lawyer. OP, I'm trying to figure something out because at the end of the day, I gotta look at them every day and watch them sneer and scowl. I know parking spaces are mine, and ultimately the decision is up to me. I may be second-guessing the fairness of it all and how I acted. I have told them off and have refused to talk about it anymore. I guess I just want a more grown-up solution. I don't even understand why they're fighting so hard for 2 spaces, which I will most likely reclaim in a month when I get homesick. Not the jerk. Do not listen to them. Get a lawyer. Have all communications regarding the spaces referred to your lawyer. Get business cards from him to hand out. Don't listen to people who don't care about you. Also, get cameras for your residence and enjoy your life. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my stepson's tuition? Some quick background knowledge. My mom passed when I was 8 years old, and upon her passing, my dad and I discovered she was much wealthier than we thought. She set up an education fund with enough money to put me through college and grad school and attend a private school. I attended a private school I had a partial scholarship to and then went to college on a full scholarship I worked insanely hard for. I went to grad school on no scholarship, so I dipped into a bit of the education money. However, after all of this, I still had quite a bit of money left over, so I planned to use it for any kids I had in the future. And now the present. My biological daughter, Anna, who's 17, female, has attended a private high school and recently got into a good college on a partial scholarship. She wants to go to medical school. Between the three of those, if she can get a partial scholarship to medical school, I would be able to help her out significantly, so she would be in very little debt. I realized how insanely privileged we are to have this opportunity, and both my daughter and I are super happy to have it. I have a stepson, Jake, who's 18, who is also going to college this fall. He didn't go to the same high school as Anna because he didn't get in, so he went to the local public high school. He's still an excellent athlete and student, and that landed him a partial scholarship at his top choice college. Obviously, I was super elated and super proud of both my kids. Here's where the issue comes in. My husband and I, who have been married for 3 years now, came up with a plan for parenting/financing and all that stuff. We plan to keep most of the money separate when it comes to kids. Obviously, we'd both contribute to buying them presents and stuff, but we left cars, college, etc. up to the other one, and it's worked out pretty well. Both Anna and Jake have cars that they paid half for, and we matched whatever they saved. I matched for Anna, and my husband matched for Jake. So for college, it was obviously decided my husband had Jake's stuff under control, and I'd be dealing with Anna's. However, my husband finds it very unfair that Anna will be in no debt and Jake will be in debt, since I'm covering Anna's college costs but not Jake's. My husband says it's unfair that Anna will have an easier life than Jake, and called both of us spoiled and entitled kids for not sharing the money. My mother-in-law also dropped by yesterday and told me I was being unfair and I should help Jake out, and that I clearly loved him less. I explained to both of them that this was the agreement my husband agreed to, and he only has a problem because Anna will end up doing better now. Mother-in-law and husband are both giving me and Anna the silent treatment. Am I the jerk? Edit. Jake's mother is out of the picture. She left years ago, and neither Jake nor my husband are in contact with her or know where she is, as far as I'm aware at least. Anna's father passed soon after she was born. Not the jerk. Each agreed to take care of your own kids. How is it suddenly unfair? Your hubby is the jerk, and if Granny wants to join in, tell her to crack open her purse and chip in since she's so insulted. OP, what a great suggestion. Definitely using that against my mother-in-law. You've only been married for 3 years. That money long predates him. You should ask him if he enjoyed growing up with a mother, then tell mother-in-law if she's so concerned about her kids' and grandkids' education, maybe she can go off and pass like your mother did. They need a reality check of how privileged they are, and that this money didn't just manifest itself out of nowhere. You suffered a major loss, and this is what's left. Your daughter will always be your daughter, but if things don't work out for you or your hubby, statistically speaking, Jake will no longer be your stepson, and you will never see the money again, and your daughter will be further in debt because of it. It might not sound like it, but I'm very sorry for the loss of your mother. Not the jerk. The two of you had an agreement, which he had no problem with until now. What does Jake think about this situation? It sounds like your husband is just unhappy that his biological son isn't doing as well as your biological daughter. OP. I think Jake wishes he had the money, but he's not blowing it out of proportion and is currently asking his grandmother and dad to drop it. He's being very nice to both Anna and I. It's his father who's dragging this out. Don't want me to work during my notice? Okay, I won't. This happened almost 5 years ago. Some details are intentionally vague. I was working in an organization that was super toxic. So much so that we were a revolving door. Most employees stayed only a few months. To counter this, our management put 3 months' notice into everyone's contract, including existing employees. It's not strictly illegal where this happened, but very unusual. I believe the idea was to make it harder for employees to find a job outside, as employers didn't usually want to wait for 3 months. However, this didn't work, as people simply quit and waited for a month or two before starting their job hunt. I was there almost 4 years. I needed the money, so I put up with whatever crap was thrown at me. My boss was a guy we'll call Vince, not his actual name. Now, Vince was not particularly good, but he sometimes respected the fact that I was the most tenured grunt in the organization. Do note that after about 2 years, I was doing a lot of additional work in addition to my official responsibilities, primarily because I was the only one who knew how to do those. Everyone else had already left. This will become important later. Enter Rajesh. not actual name. Rajesh was poached from a somewhat infamous company and was literally flown in from a different continent. He was brought in for strategically improving our division. This was quite strange given our division generated most profits. Within months, Rajesh made the environment even more toxic. He pulled Vince's team under him and got Vince fired, and he actively encouraged us grunts to spy on each other. Rajesh also had it out for me from day one. Till today, I don't know why. He started making my life more hard than others. This culminated in him taking me aside and telling me that I was not pulling my weight. Now at this point, I was doing quite well in the organization, and I had been doing a lot of additional work critical to our business since only I knew certain systems and processes. So I was quite angry. I started looking out. I still wasn't brave enough to quit and start looking. Fortunately, I was able to find a job that was willing to wait the 3 months. So it was my turn to take Rajesh aside and tell him that I quit. Boy, Rajesh was angry. He went from denial, "You can't quit," to negotiation, "What if I give you a raise at the end of the year?" to acceptance. Thus, I was serving my notice and working away like an honest bee, my usual work plus the additional work. At this point, I was called by HR and told that Rajesh wanted me gone. The insane part was that they wanted me to pay the company for the 2.5-month shortfall in notice. I obviously refused, then went back and checked the contract. Turns out a notice of less than 3 months could only happen through mutual consent, and the initiating party, company if they wanted me gone sooner, or me if I wanted to leave earlier, had to compensate the other party for the shortfall. The next day, I stopped doing almost all of my work. I logged in and logged out my hours and did nothing. I stopped doing any additional work I had been doing and started taking it really slow on my primary job responsibilities. Since no one else understood the details of what I did, I knew it would be really hard for Rajesh or HR to prove I was doing any of this on purpose. Then I sat back with my popcorn. Soon, there was a complete meltdown all around. Rajesh would pull me into meetings and scream and try to bully me, and I would say nothing but smirk to his face. Then they tried to have someone else learn the additional work I used to do from me so that they could do what I did. Remember I said earlier how I was the only one who knew some of the old systems and processes? Well, now I claimed I didn't really remember any of them, so obviously there could be no handover. Rajesh could do nothing as none of this had been my responsibility or part of my contract, since the leadership had been only too happy to see me do this for free. Soon, my workplace turned into a dumpster fire. The HR and Rajesh smartened up and offered to buy out my notice if I cooperated and helped transition my work. I refused. Then, to twist it further, I started having meetings with fellow grunts. Remember, everyone was always a newbie, and encouraged them to leave as well. Indirectly, nothing that could implicate me. HR tried to get me to leave twice more, but I ended up serving the full 3 months. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.